Hearing to order. We have a public hearing on the proposed ordinance 1622 to amend the Irmo County Code on the environmental, unsightly, unsanitary, and unsafe conditions. Anyone who would like to address council on that may come to the podium, and I think Elmer Danko asked to come, so I'm going to let him come first.
Hardy, is your mic on? I was going to say.
I don't even know what. Yeah, I just turned it on. I think I forgot to turn it on. Thank you.
Honorable Mayor Artie King and members of Irmo Town Council. My name is Elmer Danko and I live at 500 Finsbury Road. I am here to inform you that I am in favor of the ordinance amending the Irmo Town Code, Chapter 14, Article 2, nuisance section 1432, pertaining to unsanitary, unsightly, and unsafe conditions. In reviewing the original section of 1432 and the amended changes of section 1432, the amended change still covers the basic information of the original section of 1432, but it simplifies and makes the terminology more understandable for the code enforcement personnel, property owners, the renters, and everyone here in the town of Irmo. I want to thank Councilwoman Kathy Condon for the hard work and time that she put in to rewrite the amended changes that still covers the basics of the original 1432 amendment. It simplifies and makes terminology more understandable for everyone. Since there are a good number of unsanitary, unsightly, and in some cases unsafe conditions, especially in the older residential neighborhoods of the town, the wording of all town codes pertaining to residential properties must be understandable so that everyone, code enforcement personnel, owner residents, renters, all understand the town codes so that violations of the town codes can be corrected in a professional and a business-like manner. Mayor King and members of town council, it is sad and most upsetting to see those unsightly and uncared for properties in the residential neighborhoods, as a good number of those properties, at least in the Coatesville subdivision, at one time were yarded amongst recipients. Hopefully, once the entire town codes pertaining to maintaining the residential properties are in place, Irmo town government will have the total responsibility and hopefully will not fail in those responsibilities to enforce the residential property regulations. There is no reason for the older residential neighborhoods of the town to be unsightly, unsanitary, or have unsafe conditions at any time. I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Danko.
Thank you, Mr. Danko.
Anyone else?
My name is Wallace Van Dusen. I live at 107 Finsbury Road. I've been there for about 30 years. Bought the home there just because it's all brick homes with garages, and it just seemed like a very, very nice place to have the family grow up. And certainly very much concerned that it keeps looking as good as it can, even though it's older homes. They still take some maintenance, and the town could certainly help in that regard. I'm totally in favor of this amendment that has been proposed. All the numbers that Elmer spouted out, I don't remember them all, but they'd be on my list also. Two reasons. The first one I think I hit on is the pride of ownership, keeping up your property, having it look nice, keep the place painted, trimmed up, and no cars up on the blocks and all that. Secondly, maybe more important, I'm a retired realtor. having homes that are kept up in good condition certainly add to the resale value of all the homes in there. So it behooves all of us to take care of our homes as best as we can. And we look forward to the town helping us in that process.
Thank you, Wallace.
Thank you.
My name is Cassie Thompson. I live at 118 Baldwinsville Court. The neighborhoods, the yards, the roads, and everything is changing in Postburg. We really need some help over there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no more, we will close out the public hearing, and I will call the regular meeting to order and recognize Councilman Mark Pouliot leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to serve this community this day. We ask for your wisdom, your guidance, clarity of thought, focus, and the strength to do your will. May our actions be just and honorable in your sight, and help us to reflect your heart in service to our town. Lord, we ask that you help unite this country once again. In the precious name of Jesus and for the sake of his reputation, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Next item is the reading of the minutes from November the 1st, 2016. Is there a motion for approval as written?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor then of the minutes being approved as written, do so with show of hands. And next item is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you want to add?
Just one thing, Mr. Mayor, I'd appreciate if council would consider an executive session this evening for personnel matter.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing? Next is the amendments to the agenda, and I will go ahead and make a motion that we amend the agenda to add an executive, well, we got an executive session on there, but to add executive session a personnel matter. And based on that sheet, I just checked just to make sure. When you want to amend the agenda, the first question is, will the item require a vote of council to be taken at the meeting? And the answer is no. And then you just follow whatever your body is, your rules are, which is to make a motion and then get a second. So I will make a motion to go into an executive session or to add that to the agenda. Of course, we'll have to vote on it again when we get there, but to add that to the agenda for personnel matter. So is there a second?
I second it.
And any discussion?
Is this an emergency situation? So on your little check sheet, doesn't it say it has to be an emergency situation?
No, if the answer is yes to a vote being taken, then you go into, is this the final vote? If it is, then it has to be emergency, blah, 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 and all that
Right.
kind of stuff.
So is this an emergency situation we need to get?
Well, the answer to the first question is, will the item require a vote? And the answer is no. So then you go to that side of the
Let me see
chart,
that.
and then you just follow your regular amendment.
Okay, you asked for an executive session to be added to the agenda, and the vote was yes or no, right? We voted that to add this to the executive session. Then it says here, is this a final vote on the item?
No, you got to go to this question first.
Right.
Will this item
I'm following
require
what
a
you
vote?
said before.
It
I
goes
mean,
no. So then you go to this block.
well, I thought we said that we had to vote to go into executive session. That's a yes.
No, when we get down here,
Mhm.
we will have to vote to go back in.
So
This
then-
is just to
then
put it on
Then
the
it'll be
agenda.
yes down here.
Well, right
To
now,
add,
we're
to
right
amend
here.
the agenda, this is what it has to do.
No. To amend the agenda, the first question is, will the item require a vote of council to be taken at the meeting?
Right. And the answer is yes. Because you have it on there, after we get out of executive session, we can take a vote of council.
Well, we'll be taking a vote to go into an executive session. We won't be taking a vote on anything in that executive session.
On our agenda, it says right at the bottom that when we come out of executive session, we can take votes on.
Right. But
Is
this
that
one
not a
won't
vote?
require a vote. There will be no vote when we come out of executive session.
I'm just quoting what you put on.
Right. So I'm just quoting what the state law says, and that's what we're going by.
Okay, well, I think you might be misinterpreting that, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could be, but based on what it's saying here, I don't believe so. But, so we got a motion and a second, and I think, let me see. Yeah. So all in favor then of adding that to the agenda?
So my question was answered, was this an emergency situation?
No.
Is this an emergency situation?
This is just a update.
Okay.
So all in favor then of adding that to the agenda? All opposed? All right, so just add that to that. Next is consideration of communications, and we have a Grant Lindsay here from Boy Scout Troop 410 who would like to do a presentation. So we will ask him to come forward.
Mayor King, members of Irmo Town Council, Town Administrator Mr. Brown. I am Grant Lindsay, Senior Patrol Leader of Boy Scouts Troop 410, chartered to Redeemer Lutheran Church on St. Andrews Road. Troop 410 would like to thank the town of Irmo for partnering with us and American Legion Post 174 to conduct our second community flag retirement ceremony on December 3rd in Irmo Town Community Park. The ceremony will take place at 3 p.m. in the Palmetto Health Amphitheater. The public is invited, but we'd like to issue a special invitation to you and the entire Irmo town family to attend. Members of the troop and American Legion will retire worn, torn, and badly soiled U.S. flags, state flags, and military unit flags. The ceremony involves cutting apart the U.S. flag, separating the blue field from the stripes, and then retiring the pieces by fire. State and military unit flags will also be retired by fire as a part of the ceremony. We'd also like to thank the town of Irmo for again being a collection point for the flags that needed to be retired. We currently have more than 100 flags to be retired as a part of the ceremony. This troop hopes to make this an annual event. Troop 410 is chartered to Redeemer Lutheran Church and will be celebrating its 50th year anniversary in 2017. Thank you, and we hope to see all of y'all on December 3rd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next is presentation by citizens. This is where anyone who would like to address council on anything that's on the agenda tonight may do so at this time. And all you need to do is give us your name and address for the record, and also the agenda item you want to speak to. And I think, Mr. Danko, you wanted to speak here as well, so I'll recognize you first.
I'm Elmer Danko. I live at 500 Finsbury Road. Honorable Mayor King, members of Irmo Town Council. It is most unfortunate that living in one of the older subdivisions in the town of Irmo, and like the other older subdivisions of the town, we are faced with unsightly, unsanitary, and in some cases unsafe conditions of some of the properties within the subdivision. I know that people have a right to live as they see fit. But why do they, as resident or owners or renters, create situations that cause these unsightly, unsanitary, and unsafe living conditions within the residential neighborhoods? When I purchased my property in 1972, that was a new subdivision at the time, all of the properties within the subdivision had nice new-built homes with landscaped yards. The properties stayed that way until about 6 or 8 years ago. It was at that time that some properties began to become unsightly, unsanitary, and in some cases unsafe. That is, property structures rotting before our eyes. In these older subdivisions, we have no codes pertaining to how the residential properties are to be maintained, such as are in the newer residential subdivisions. In the older subdivisions, we are at the mercy of the town in which we live to provide us with regulations that protect our properties from becoming unsanitary, unsightly, and having to look at structures that are rotting again before our eyes. Mayor King and council members, I ask you to please pass the ordinance 16-22 to amend the town code, as well as any future pending code changes or regulations to protect our residential properties from becoming unsightly or unsanitary or unsafe to live in. Thank you.
Thank
you, sir.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Next item then is unfinished business. Item A, third and final reading of ordinance 1621 to rezone TMS 3916 and TMS 3911. These are the two properties on Columbiana Drive. Is there a motion for third and final reading?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
And any discussion? And I'll recognize Councilman Walker first and then Councilman Pouliot second.
I already talked it to death. I mean, there's no opposition. I don't see anybody jumping up and saying they're not in favor of it, so.
I'm in agreement.
Has there been anybody here from the neighborhood saying anything that we know of?
No, we had the sign out there,
Yeah.
the entrance, but again, it's in a lawsuit, and I think some of them know that. I did talk to one neighbor who asked about it at the previous meeting, but because it's in that lawsuit and they're aware of it. And that reminds me too, make sure you talk to Mike Swords on their ZBA. Because I know that thing required that berm to be all along the backside of that property. But him, I think it's what he told me, and another neighbor, when they were building that berm, told them not to put one behind their house because they wanted the trees. So they did. So we just need to make sure that when somebody builds, that they leave the trees behind those two homes and not cut those down because the berm ain't there. But you may want to get with them and make sure that gets.
I mean, my understanding was it wasn't a big deal now, but a developer is required to make sure it's all up.
Yeah, and so they may want to go in there and cut them down and add
Correct.
the two house lots or whatever. You just need to know they don't have to. Based on what he said, you may want to talk to him and the other neighbor too, just to verify, but. Yeah, and based on that lawsuit, that was part of the agreement.
Yeah.
That he could change it to general commercial whenever he basically wanted to.
And general commercial is more liberal
That's
than light manufacturing, right?
Just different restrictions, I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some stuff that can be built in general commercial that couldn't in light manufacturing, but there's stuff in light manufacturing that could get built in that can in general commercial either.
If I lived there, I'd prefer light manufacturing.
If something got built behind you, you probably wouldn't. But if you as far as the zoning, the likelihood that somebody will buy that and build a manufacturing plant is kind of low because the land's expensive. But if they did, they could.
They could, well,
You may wish something else was there, but you never know. Any more discussion? All in favor then of third and final reading, do so with show of hands. Oop, sorry. Oop. All opposed, did you? No.
voted no, yes.
So you're going to vote for us to get suit maybe, or?
No, if I lived there, I would not want a strip shopping
Yeah.
center behind me. I'd want
Well, I
a
think
bed
that's why they
factory
made
or
that
something, you know.
berm too, was to block as much as possible of that in a future date. Next is third and final reading of 1622, which is the unsightly, unsanitary, unsafe. Is there a motion for third and final reading?
I so move.
And a second.
Second?
Again, I'll recognize Councilman Waits first and Councilwoman Condon.
Well, I think Mr. Danko has made the point. This is just the first step in turning Irmo around. And still, I'd like to see us put rental properties and homeowner occupied properties under the same strict control that rental properties are on, because there's all too many houses in some of the older subdivisions where people park their cars wherever they wish to park their cars.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas rental houses are restricted from having cars parked anywhere except on concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, they can't tell whether it's a rental property
That's right.
or a residential property.
Without checking in.
But at the same time, I think if you try to enforce no parking on the grass, so to speak, on every home in Irmo, we're going to create another problem with the cars in the road and the trash can garbage service and post office service and all that kind of stuff too. I think that's one of those we just got to weed through real slowly, figure out something.
Yes.
That's a problem that there's no answer to.
That's part of the, Whereas if it's a rental home, it's easy to tell them, well, if you're going to rent a house to somebody with 6 cars, then build 6 parking places, or don't rent it to somebody with 6 cars, or.
Yes.
But somebody living in the house, it's kind of different. And y'all will notice in your stuff, there's another
Yeah.
1623 that we'll maybe get to. One of the things that I wanted to do, and this is up to council.
We voting on this?
Not
thing or
yet, no, we got to explain something first. Wait a
Yeah.
minute.
When we started looking at this, part of the thing that I was trying to address was the unsanitary and unsightly. And the unsanitary was kind of, I won't say worded well, but it was kind of there. We made a few changes to it. And then paragraph 2 and 3 is the ones we worked on that had to do with the unsightly. Paragraph 4 has to do more with unsafe, so to speak. And one of the things I wanted to do is make a motion to take number 4 out of this ordinance, 1622, and put it in this other ordinance, 1623. I didn't change any wording. It's all just the same right now.
But it would make it first reading, so we could work.
And then we'd make first reading on that one, and then we could work on it, because I think it needs some more
It does.
something. I've been trying to think of some stuff, but I just can't. Even like last night after that meeting, my head has still got a headache today.
I looked up all the synonyms for dilapidated, and none of them work. You know, they're awful.
Well,
that none of them were.
And me and Kathy rode around, was it last Wednesday? One day last week. And looked at some houses that she was referring to, and I kind of got a better idea of what she's talking about. I'm just trying to figure out how to word it in a way that is clear, but at the same time with not too many holes.
Something enforceable, too.
Yeah. And I may, once we get first reading on that,
I see.
is maybe defer it one meeting that gives us a little bit more time to work on it. Or come back to second at the next meeting and add some stuff to it and then defer it for a while to think about it some more, because
And I know code enforcement does not want to give us an opinion on some of these words, but some of these words, we might need a police word or or something that'll work.
Well, we're going to have to get that from the attorney.
Well, we can do that.
Well, and I thought I'd kind of write up some stuff and then give it to Eric with this and
Yes.
see if he
Yeah.
can massage it somehow or another.
And make sure they can enforce it.
And kind of do what we're doing in this other thing with the animals as well, but list, here's what unsightly is, and name, or not unsightly, but unsafe, and name some stuff
Yes.
that kind of describes what an unsafe house or dilapidated, a dilapidated house looks like, and list those things in an order that at least they'll have a better idea that this is what they're calling dilapidated, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then kind of go from there. So I will go ahead and just make a motion. And we can pass it and then do the other one and take it out, or we can just make a motion, take it out, and then work on it, and whichever way. And what I was going to do was make a motion to remove the word unsafe, where it say unsanitary and unsightly conditions, or leave, and unsafe out of the title, and then remove chapter 4, or not chapter 4,
Number
but
4.
paragraph 4.
Yeah,
So that would be my motion. Let me make this.
and I'll second that.
What is your motion now?
To remove, up here in the title, where it says unsanitary and unsightly and unsafe, it'll just say unsanitary and unsightly conditions.
We're going to have a new ordinance just for unsafe.
Yeah, and then
And we're
remove
gonna try to
channel,
be specific,
remove
very, as
paragraph 4. And then that's all going to be, that's the next thing on our agenda is 1623, which is starting a new ordinance with all that in it. So to remove unsafe out of the title and then to remove paragraph 4. And let's see, so I made a motion, Kathy seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that amendment, do so with show of hands. All opposed? All right, so now we're back to third and final reading of 1622 as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor then of third and final reading of 1622 as amended, do so with show of hands. All right, now,
Mayor, I can ask you a question. So you're gonna move unsafe to like paragraph, section 14-38, just so I understand what we're doing. You're gonna make a new section that says unsafe conditions, and you list them under there, okay?
you're talking about in 1623? No, 16,
Yeah, you're doing another ordinance, but I wanna make sure I know where the word unsafe is going.
oh, okay.
Oh.
We're still gonna leave in our ordinance, we're just gonna make another section 14-38, which would be a new section altogether.
Yeah,
okay.
I wanna make sure I
because right now we got section 1432 that says unsanitary, unsightly, and unsafe. So we're taking unsafe out of that one. And then, yeah, we're going to make this 1623 our unsafe one. Yeah, and this one unsightly and unsanitary. And then we can work on that and get it kind of. So next is, oh, I got it. Well, 1624 is the one we're going to be. Oh, 1625. Okay, it's down there in the new business. I had it on this right page, but, all right, 1623, third and final reading. Is there a motion for, and this is the one with the Lexington County Stormwater. Is there a motion for approval of 1623?
So moved.
And second.
Second.
And this is the one that we are just, they changed their stormwater stuff, so we had to kind of adopt theirs,
We've already adopted, we're just updating our.
or updating their thing. So any discussion? All in favor then of third and final reading of 1623, do so with show of hands. And next is second reading of ordinance 1624 to amend the Irmo Town Code, Chapter 6, Animals, Section 6.8. This is the one with the hogs. And we're adding the goats and sheep and peacocks and guineas and hens. Is there a motion for second reading of 1624?
I make a motion.
And a second.
I second it.
Any discussion?
Well, we've heard recently that since we are Lexington and Richland County, and we do not enforce animal control as a town, it's left to the two counties, and they have their own list of prohibitive animals that they will deal with. We'll have to somehow word this to where it's incorporated into this ordinance, would we not?
Well,
Since they are enforcing this ordinance for us, so to speak, by coming in and removing
Does
animals.
make sense.
yeah, well, they will come in as far as removing it. There's a dog running loose or some other kind of category of something, then Lexington will enforce their ordinance on the Lexington side of Irmo and Richland on the Richland side. But our ordinance is still, I won't say in effect as well, and whatever animals we have in ours, it's up to us to enforce. Anything that's not on ours, then if I'm getting this correct, they would enforce, the county. Because they're not going to enforce this because it's not in their ordinance.
That's correct.
We would have to enforce it.
Enforce theirs because we adopted.
Okay, all right. And,
A wild lion running around, we're gonna have to get somebody to come get it.
and they have a
Code
list,
enforcement can't
but
pick up
theirs
any
doesn't
line.
include a breakdown of these things.
Okay.
One thing theirs does say too, which I've read it, but I haven't read it real slowly. Any animal, from what I'm understanding that I'm reading, any animal that anybody has on their property is supposed to be vaccinated once a year, and also supposed to be licensed. So if
That
somebody wants
includes
to
dogs.
have, let's say a goat, then technically it's got to be in annual vaccinations, and it's also got to be licensed, which a lot of that stuff probably never would be.
It's a license.
Yes.
I mean, you got to have, all
have to
your
have a
cats
tag.
and dogs are supposed to have tags and license and all that,
Vaccine tag.
and the vaccines and everything else. Whatever,
I have one problem. I don't think we can outlaw ducks. First of all, they fly. And the second part is they're in Harbison, which is your neighborhood, which is also in Irmo. And Harbison encourages them because they have ponds and things like that. I think we ought to take ducks out. And
Well-
I think it makes sense. We can't police ducks.
But those are wild ducks,
Well,
whereas these would be on a person's property, would
It's
be
got
sort of
ducks.
domesticated ducks.
I domesticate, this says
You can
ducks.
domesticate a duck.
If you want to qualify this, then we'll reconsider. I think we ought to take ducks
Cook one
out.
too.
I'm going with you on the peacocks and the guinea hens, but I don't think so on the ducks. The ducks can't, can y'all pick up a duck?
Yeah.
You got to be careful when you pick one
Do
up,
you
though.
want to? I think we ought to take ducks out. That's my opinion. I'm asking for that amendment as a matter of fact. And you can go ahead and second it, Hardy.
let me find it here.
Whoa. I think somebody's got
Let's
ducks in
see.
their yard.
All right, 1620, so Kathy is making a motion
To
To
amend,
amend.
take out ducks.
and remove ducks.
Second.
Oh, man, I was supposed to do that. I second. Very second, all right.
He likes Peking duck, I can tell.
All right, so there is a amendment to remove ducks from this. Any discussion? I don't know. I mean, I won't say I don't care one way or the other. I know ducks can fly, and they're very wild ducks. They're gonna fly in, fly out, and you're gonna have a hard
Yeah.
time keeping them in your backyard anyway, unless you clip their wing, or do
that's
something
okay.
like that. And, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, to me, like taking a dog that you don't want to put up a fence for and breaking its leg so it can't run away.
God.
I think they're both kind of, but I'm sure clipping the duck's wings is probably more humane than
Yes.
that. I don't know, but
You don't-
yeah,
you don't-
I wouldn't want to do either
Duck
one,
doesn't
but
hurt when you
you know.
Don't do anything to a dog in Lexington County, that doesn't work.
But
I never had deep fried duck. I want to have that.
Oh,
I've deep fried turkey.
I bet it tastes like chicken.
y'all are
But then
really
again, I don't
tacky.
know.
Just take the ducks out, please. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So any more
Let's try
discussion?
that. Let's try that.
Let's vote on the ducks.
All in favor then of removing ducks from this ordinance, do so show of hands.
Raise your hand. I got 3. It's all right.
All opposed? All right, so we have removed ducks.
Thank you,
Ducks are-
gentlemen.
Ducks are out.
Now we're back to the ordinance 1624, second reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor then of 1624 as amended with removing ducks, do so with show of hands. All right. And now we're down to the one I'm talking about, 1625. This is the one where we're adding the new section 1437 into another ordinance by itself. So is there a motion for first reading of ordinance 1625?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Oh, okay. Any discussion?
It's got to be rewritten. And I think it's fine to have first reading, but then we've got to figure it out. Something that will work, is understandable and legal. And it's not easy. Even though we know the houses we're talking about. You can look at them and you go, that's it. That's an example of it.
But then it's inhabited, which this.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the flaw.
And a couple of them are.
Yes.
Which is dangerous to life, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but who qualified you to make that decision that it's dangerous
Well,
to
when the
life?
roof's falling in, I mean, literally caved in, it's probably not a good place to live with
Well, how do
children.
you make that decision, though? I mean, who qualified you as the building expert?
DHEC, for one.
No. Who qualified you as a building
I'm a
expert
mother.
that says
No.
that this house is a
I'm
danger
not a
to
building
life?
expert,
Okay, that's what I'm
but
saying.
I think,
Well,
So who qualified Chief Nates and his crew to be the building experts to go around and issue abatement notices?
do you want to be responsible for children living in a house that half the roof?
Some people are living in these houses that you are saying right now. People are living in their occupied houses.
And if something
Now-
happens to them,
They're occupied houses. Granted, yeah, they might be dilapidated, as you call it, or they might be
No, I'm
falling
talking about
down.
dangerous.
If you're not prepared to repair these houses for these people, how are you to say that this house is uninhabitable, it's unsanitary, it's unsafe, if they're living in it?
the roof falling in or the floor falling in, I think is,
But people are living in there.
well,
People are occupied these
I
houses.
understand, but I don't
Now, if the
think
house,
it's
now,
safe.
if the house has been condemned and they're not supposed to be in there, it's a different story. But if the house has not been condemned and people are living in there, who qualifies Chief Nates or whoever his people are to go around and say that this house is unsightly, unsanitary, and I'm going to issue an abatement notice?
No, this is just unsafe.
Okay.
That's all.
and one thing to kind of answer your question too, one of the things I want to reword on that is to define dilapidated in a way that it's more visual than a inspection, so to speak. And that's the part I gotta, I don't say wrap my head around, but try to figure out how we can describe that in a way that visually you know what it means because you see this. And I may, and I'm not sure, we'll have to vote on it, but I may end up, and I wanted to change it too, and I ain't gonna do it tonight, but I wanted to change it to dilapidated, abandoned, vacant as well, and then cover the different stuff in the different things. So you'll have dilapidated means yada, yada, yada. Abandoned is a house like the one over there in foreclosure that's been vacant and abandoned, both. I don't know that it's technically abandoned, but the owner, the bank, the mortgage company, whoever, is pretty much walked away from it and what we do in that. And that's the part that Eric may have to come and give us at some point. When a house is abandoned, y'all deem it abandoned, then I will do X, Y, Z, which means going to court and starting all that stuff. If it's vacant.
We could do that now.
Yeah, but I think I want to put it all in here and just kind of break it down. We don't have a good policy that when code enforcement goes out and says, okay, we've been to this house and we wrote to people and we haven't heard anything back, nobody lives there, then it gets turned over to Eric and then he does whatever he does. But I think we need to polish that part
Only one of the
up.
houses has people in it, and we're not sure they're in it. The other two are vacant. There's no one in it and hadn't been anybody in them in a long time.
People can say that my house is unsightly, unsanitary, it's, unsafe.
Your house is?
Yeah, they can say that. You can make that decision.
Well-
You drive by my house and say that my house is unsafe.
Is your
and
roof falling
issue me
in? When you walk in the back door, does your foot go to the dirt?
you don't know if it does. It might. My deck need a repair. I mean, it's 30, 40 years
Well,
old.
that's why we want to clarify this.
So does that
up
mean
and
it's
clean it up a
safe?
whole lot.
Could be.
My point is this, is that if people are living there, it's a totally different ball game as opposed to a house that's empty or vacant, like you say. I mean, it's a no-brainer. If a house is vacant, nobody's living there, the door's wide open, yeah, okay, that's a nuisance. I can understand that. But if somebody is occupying that house and we haven't determined that this house has been condemned and they shouldn't be there, you can't go and write an abatement notice to that person because you don't like the way their house looks or because it's unsightly.
Right. And I agree with that.
Yeah, I
That's
do.
why we got to,
But it's not unsightly. It's hazardous.
I
to
keep
have.
saying unsightly because that's the trigger
Yeah, but
that
that's
starts the whole ball that, okay, now I'm going to look at it and say, wow, it's unsafe, it's it's unkept or whatever. You have to visually see something that will stop you. Oh, well, maybe that house is, and then you find out somebody's actually living in there. And then now you got a different ball game. It's not the same as if you see this house, it's unsightly, unkept, and nobody's living there. Yeah, okay, that's a no-brainer. We can put things in place. We got things in place now to handle those kind of houses. But the question is, when somebody is still occupying that property, you're going to issue a ticket? You're going to give them an abatement notice?
Well, if it's unsafe for somebody to live in it, that's the whole thing.
But who's going to make that decision?
Well, see, that's what we need to do is to set up some code or some guidelines. In Southeast Asia, we threw out crates and they were nailed together and cardboard stapled to them and people were living in them and that was their house. And that wouldn't go in this country because there are regulations regarding what is a habitable structure.
Right.
So we need to clarify what it is and what constitutes dilapidated
building
and
codes now.
uninhabitable.
Yeah.
I think if we were to get an understanding of what condemns a property, that I think will help us word this in such a way that it would have some teeth to it. Now, can anyone tell me what today allows a property to be condemned?
DHEC has some guidelines on unlivable. And I can't remember 100% what
do.
they are, but they have to do with windows and doors and stuff like that, water and heat and
That
power and stuff.
certainly helps.
But the county, Lexington, for instance, they have building inspectors. So they can go out and check a property that's in their jurisdiction, or we can ask them to come, and they can inspect the property and tell us if it meets their guidelines. But they have to be able to get into property, and if somebody's living in it and they don't want them in, then they can't go in.
Yep.
So
Two of them
a lot of those aren't 100% applicable either. But I think what we're doing here is just putting this one and that one, and then between now and second reading, we can either defer it until we get more information, or we can do what changes we get and then vote on those and then do some more to it.
It's gonna take.
Because I think it needs probably three categories. One is the vacant homes that are abandoned. One is the other homes that look bad, but may not be dangerous, but still look bad and look dilapidated. And then it's the ones that are a health hazardous to, whatever. So you almost got three categories. You got to almost break it down into those three.
You just said look bad. That's
Well, I mean,
that's a
I'm just
qualifying
saying-
statement that
Yeah.
you're gonna.
Those
I
may
don't
be the-
agree with. I mean, you can have some house that looks bad to you, and that just may be my pride and joy because that's all I've ever
Right.
had.
But that's why you got 5 people voting on it, so the 5 would determine whatever that is. And it would have to be, again, something pretty terrible, like the one house with the garage doors falling off
Yeah,
and the one
there's a
house with
House
the
catty
lumber
corner from me,
falling off the house.
and the garage doors are falling
I
in,
think
the
it'd have
deck's
to be
already gone.
extreme. It's not just, we don't like.
So that house should be condemned because the
think it
garage
should be
doors
Yeah, it
falling off?
should be. There's a problem with the title.
Oh, that's
So-
right, you've been inside of that one.
I've been inside of it, and 2 of our officers have been inside of it, and there's spiders in it. I doubt that we'll get that.
Spiders
started.
in my house, man.
But that's the one you said had a floor out, too.
Yeah, the floor, they took a step into the kitchen and their foot fell through,
Matter of fact, there's lizards in my house. The cat, Mo, caught a lizard. It scared us to
Okay,
death.
well,
So
it's
now
all right.
does that
You
mean
can
is
keep your lizard.
my house
That's
is,
all right.
again, is my house, can my house be called
Well,
condemn it?
the
And
problem
because,
is,
you
it
know,
increases
No, yours wouldn't.
the number of police calls because people know it's vacant and they try to break into it all the time.
Well, vacant houses, I understand, but
Well,
I live in
is
this
vacant.
one.
Well, we're not.
And I got
talking
spiders
about
and I
your
got
house.
lizards running around in my
Are
house.
you
and
gonna have a party and invite us, and we'll tell you how it looks?
You tell me how bad
Yeah,
it is?
We'll tell you how it looks if you
Well,
want. The one I'm talking about is vacant. It's right across the street
We're
from
gonna come
me.
check your trash, too.
Oh, my medical waste?
But yeah, we need a lot of work on this, and,
I mean, we do,
And I'll
really
take you
do.
riding and show you what I'm talking about. and
I don't
you'll
want to go
see.
riding with you.
You don't?
Nope.
All right, then don't go.
you bought me lunch.
Or maybe I'll go with you. No,
You're left out, don't
we
you?
got a lot. We got a lot of work to do
He
on
has.
that one.
Yeah, anytime, y'all let me know. We'll go.
Yeah, we will.
You do have to look at them to understand,
So any more discussion then on 1625 as far as passing it as is for first reading, and then
change it.
Been working
Then,
on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
need a lot. And anything that y'all come up with too, we need to make sure we send it to Eric or send it back and forth, and we can.
It's gonna take some time.
So all in favor then of first reading of 1625, do so with show of hands.
Thank you.
Next is presentation by citizens. This is where anyone who would like to address council on anything, regardless of whether it was on the agenda or not, may do so at this time. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record. And seeing none? None. Any discussion? Well, none on here. Next is executive session, and we do, excuse me. We do have a personnel matter. Is there a motion to go into executive session for a personnel matter?
I so move.
In a second. Second. All in favor? We will go in, be right back out, and let's make sure executive session, no votes were taken, no decisions made. Next item is adjournment. Is there a motion for adjournment? Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank y'all.
NCIS starts in 4 minutes.